Well, after 6 seasons, The Expanse is finally over, at least for the moment. And we knew it was coming, but did Season 6 live up to the hype? As always, I'm Al, this is the Geek in Review, and I'm going to be talking about The Expanse Season 6, so if you haven't seen it, this will contain spoilers. And yeah, the season was bittersweet, to be honest, knowing that we're not going to get a full run of episodes, and that for the moment it is the final season. And we knew that some things were going to be left open, and you could probably get the dynamic of the season wasn't going to be exactly the same or be a little bit different, given the fact that there's less episodes and then, you know, COVID and all that jazz as well. But with less episodes and a lot of plot threads to tie up, down a 6-season arc with some of the most deep dynamic characters ever put on screen fully deliver. And if you're asking me honestly, I think this season was as good as it could have been given the reduction in episodes and the worldwide pandemic that was going on. I don't think it was as strong as the usual Expanse seasons are, but then again, that was more to do with what was going on in the real world rather than anything to do with the writing or the storytelling on the show. Everything did fit pretty well and everyone did end up exactly where they need to be if these guys are going to continue the story going forward. The only thing I can really complain about in Season 6 is that not all of the characters got as much screen time as they usually do and as much room to breathe as they usually do. While we got the highlights of Bobby and Amos, we didn't get as much Christian as we usually get. And when we did see her, she was usually reacting to something behind a console. There wasn't any of that sharp, you know, acid banter or acid tongue that she usually has, apart from a few bits here and there. And that's my only complaint of this season, is that some of the characters, including my favourite ones, were put in the back burner to focus on the ones that they had to tidy up, like Drummer and Marco Inaros. Now, I said that a minute ago, but Christian, for example, was nowhere near as present as she usually is in the other Expanse seasons, including Season 4 when they were on a completely alien world through the ring. She still had her own strong story throughout that season and influenced what happened to the greater story in the Expanse universe. But in this episode, it just felt like she was staring at a screen waiting for things to happen. She wasn't the only character that this happened to. For the first few episodes, Holden was pretty much put on the back burner as well, and his whole sort of arc on this season was just talking about the ships that were disappearing in the rings and trying to solve that mystery. Because apart from the final 2 episodes, let's be honest, he never really got a lot to do in this season. There was the fight or the space battle in episode 2 or 3, and yeah, it was alright, but it wasn't particularly amazing, or I should say that Holden wasn't particularly amazing or standing out in it. And I know it's an ensemble cast, and the way that the novels are told is from different points of view, and Holden's is an important one. And although we got a lot of the crew and the Rossi in this season, I just think they could have done a little bit more with what they had in these guys together. But that's not to say that these are particularly bad points. They were just trying to do their best with what they had. I said it in my final episode review of Season 6, at least it wasn't Game of Thrones where they tried to throw everything at the wall, including the kitchen sink, and squeeze it all in just because they had to get it finished. These guys set up what they had to set up, finished what they had to finish, and left a whole lot of shit open. The Laconia stuff, I'm even amazed that they touched it. When we seen it in episode 1, I thought it was just going to be a one-off rather than a recurring theme throughout the season, and I'm going to make a separate video where I talk about what happens in the books next, so I'm not going to get into too much detail in this video and there's not going to be too many spoilers, but the fact that they've done the Laconia stuff gives me a great amount of faith that in some form or another the Expanse is going to be back on our screens sooner, hopefully, rather than later. The thing I was shocked about is, because they had less episodes, I expected they would be slightly longer like the last one, but they all sort of stuck to the standard format. And while the stories didn't feel particularly too, you know, like everything had been cut up or compressed to fit it all in, a few more minutes here and there every episode could have certainly helped to build some of the plot points and some of the characters as well. But overall, if you're putting a gun to my head, I'd say Season 6 was probably my least favourite, because the Expanse stuff that I really enjoyed the most was all the stuff about the proto-molecule, and this season was all sort of politics and fighting. And I know I said I wouldn't talk too much spoilers, but in the book, or in the books I should say, because there are several books that haven't been made into shows yet, the later seasons focus so much more on the rings in Laconia and the Martian defectors and Admiral Duarte, that's all, that is the main concern. The whole stuff about Mars and Earth and the belt kind of gets put not on the back burner, but there's a significant passage of time of about 25 years, so the politics of not the world but the situation for these characters has changed, and there's a bit more of a status quo. And this season does set that up with the whole transportation union and Holden and Drummer. And I said that in my last video as well, but everyone is exactly in the position that they need to be if they're going to pick these stories up, especially if there's going to be a time gap as well. And it did have a very reminiscent feel of Star Trek The Next Generation, the last episode there. That the very last scene, if you've never seen it, is after 7 years, Picard finally decides to join his crew in a poker game. And I think the last line that's said in the series is, "I should have done this years ago." So it was about a character realising that they had the ability to change and they're accepting that going forward. And that's exactly what happened here with Bobby and Clarissa joining the Rossi, them getting accepted, Drummer getting accepted into the transport union, and Christian accepting that she has to change her ways. She doesn't always need to be, on everyone's back about getting everything her own way. And that's what's great about this finale. It didn't feel like the show has ended. It still felt like these guys are going to go off and live their lives, and it's just that we're not going to see it, at least for a while. But the season did try and go at its own pace where possible. Like I say, there was great sort of highlights between Monica and Christian and Amos and Bobby, and even Clarissa and Amos as well. Naomi was still dealing with the fallout from the last season, so other than the final episode, she was just kind of lumped in with Holden, and that they kind of didn't really have much for her to do in the in-between when she wasn't dealing with those issues. I would argue quite heavily that this season was Marco and Drummer's season, because my god, Drummer got such good stories in this season. Losing her family, her ships, getting absolutely thrashed, trying to get allies, not knowing who to trust, and then trying to establish herself as a power in the system as well. Drummer's probably my favourite character, I think, in the show that's still alive, that's not Amos. There are other ones, but I'm not going to talk about it because, again, it would ruin the other books. But I'm really happy what they've done with Drummer in the final season, and if they do pick it up, I'll be very excited to see what Cara G is going to do with her performance of Drummer, especially if they do the 20 or 30 year time jump. Because seeing her and Christian go head to head at the end of the season, could we not have seen this sooner? Of course not, it would ruin the plot of the rest of the seasons, but seeing these two women completely butt heads and not back down and kind of have to admit that, they don't need each other, but they need each other to get along. It was so good, and I wish we got to see more of it, because I loved the Bobby and Christian stuff. I thought that was going to be the ultimate, two animals kind of fighting and banging heads with each other, but Drummer is just another beast entirely. And the thing with Drummer is that she probably would kill you, whereas Bobby wouldn't do that. And Drummer is the type of person that she didn't really want to be in charge, but she'd rather do it herself than let anyone else do it because she doesn't trust them. She didn't really seem too sure that that was even specifically going to go through. I don't know how much Holden consulted her in the process before he made the announcement, but then part of me thinks it could have been her idea all along, because the one thing that Drummer done throughout her arc in the Expanse was learn. We seen it with when she was with Fred, and we seen it when she was with Clay Ashford, so I think she learned from Avasarala as well, because although she's a good fighter, I think she'll be a damn good politician too. And that's why Christian backed down, because when Holden basically said, look, don't change this, he wasn't really asking her. He was more telling her that we need to change this, and if you don't do it, there's going to be absolute hell to pay, and it's going to be at your doorstep. And Drummer done what any good politician would do and took advantage of the situation to get what she wants. While Christian didn't agree with this overall, she did know it was the right thing. And it might not be the right thing for Earth right now, but it's certainly the right thing for humanity going forward. And while the crew of the Rossi didn't get as much screen time as they usually used to over the seasons, like I say, all the threads on there were tied up pretty well as they could have been. I love the interactions with the crew this season. I'd like to see a little bit more between Clarissa and Holden and Bobby and Holden and Bobby and Naomi, but we've seen that in previous seasons. I'd just like to see a bit more how Bobby get integrated into the ship. Because I know I said I wouldn't talk spoilers, but in the next book, let's say when there's a time jump, Bobby is actually the captain or is about to become the captain of the Rossi when Holden and Naomi retire. So she does play a huge role in the books going forward. So while I have my criticism of Season 6 overall, I think if you look at The Expanse as a complete work from Season 1 to 6, it's fairly solid with a fairly solid finale. The thing about this show is there isn't really a bad episode or a slow episode. If you're talking about the whole 6 seasons, the only thing I didn't really like, because I didn't really like the character, I think they spent too long with him, was Prax when he was looking for his daughter. That's maybe the only storyline that I didn't connect to in these 6 seasons. But everything else, when it got by episode 3 of season 1, I was in, and I consumed this show like absolute crazy. Between 2020 and 2021, I think I watched The Expanse 3 or 4 times, and I even got a few more people to watch it as well, just because I wanted to talk about it with my friends. And the way that I said it was, it's like Game of Thrones in space, but it's not crap yet. And that's the highlight for me, is this show never got crap. It never really suffered bad writing or bad plot pacing or bad stories. The development with the characters was there, the visual effects and the space battles were stunning, and the emotional dilemmas that these people had to deal with in situations that they had to overcome is some of the best on television. If you look at any review site like IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes or anyone at all, the reviews for this show are always completely solid, 9 out of 10, 4 out of 5, that kind of thing. And it is all down to the writing. The cast is great, but the foundation of this show is the writing and the characters themselves, which jump pretty much straight from the page in a lot of cases, and in some cases they have been slightly adapted from the books. So do I think this is the end of The Expanse? I hope not. Probably not. But if we don't get an announcement within, say, 6 months to a year, I don't think this is going to be coming back in the TV show format. I think if they are going to bring it back, and it's not going to be 2 full seasons, or at least 2 sort of, 6 episode seasons, they'll probably could do it in maybe 3 or 4 1 hour or 1.5 hour extended TV movies. But that wouldn't really do the other stories or the future stories that much justice, because the scope of this show just gets absolutely bigger and bigger. I said this to someone when I was trying to get them to watch the show. I went, it starts off as a sort of political murder mystery, and it ends up being like a kind of Stargate, Lord of the Rings kind of thing, and you'll never get, or you'll never connect how you get from A to B to C, because even if I told you what the ring was, or what it meant, or what the proto-molecule was, you wouldn't be able to imagine how it was going to get there. And for me, that was the absolute beauty of this show, was the storytelling. Now, I've rambled on a bit longer than usual here, because I love this show so much. I'm going to be doing another video that talks about what happens in the rest of the Expanse books. So make sure you subscribe to the channel and you've got notifications turned on so you don't miss anything. Let me know what you think of Season 6 in the comments below. In fact, let me know what you think of all seasons. You can follow me on Twitter, or you can reach me there at The Geeks Reviews. My name's Al, and if you've made it this far, please leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel as well if you haven't done it. It would mean so much. The Expanse is gone, but I'm still going to talk about it when I want to talk about it, and I hope that you'll join me.